but I ain't making no noise, no noise, no noise, no noise, no noise. But I ain't making no noise. Steady smoking that loud, but I ain't making no noise. See, I'm steady getting to this money, man, but I ain't making no noise. I keep my top down, letting the smoke out, but I ain't making no noise. I keep 1,000 on my feet, see, still I ain't making no noise. Rolling them cookies in that OG, but I ain't making no noise. I keep a 30 round of that Trey pound, but I ain't making no noise. The people trying to roll up on me, see, man, I ain't making no noise. I ain't making no noise, man, say I ain't making no noise. I woke up feeling good, said my prayers, rolled the backwood, top shelf, OG. You know a nigga stay smoking good, put my bun on, chains on. Burn the rung, that means end zone. Sound like a good ass day to me. Back touchdown like 83. Fired up the SS thing. 4 G's on Chevelle frames. I see Kool-Aid and that cut dog doing 100 plus in the best lane. We celebrate champagne. Ace of spade, no campaign, no promo. You phone no, faking for them bitches, no guapo. When my stock blow on my endo, that mean it ain't nothing less than 20. You see, I ain't making too much noise when it come to getting to this money. But it's smash mode, M.O.E. Hell yeah, boy, we got plenty. I've been getting paid 100 ways ever since a nigga was 20. Brass steady smoking that loud, but I ain't making no noise. See, I'm steady getting to this money, man, but I ain't making no noise. I keep my top down, letting the smoke out, but I ain't making no noise. I keep 1,000 on my feet, see, still I ain't making no noise. Rolling them cookies in that OG, but I ain't making no noise. I keep a 30 round of that Trey pound, but I ain't making no noise. The people trying to roll up on me, see, man, I ain't making no noise. I ain't making no noise, man, say I ain't making no noise. Thumb through 20K today, another 30K yesterday, 50K in 2 days. Well, I'ma show you niggas how to get paid. Country boy, city ways, 100,000 every 90 days. It's a damn shame I make tree look like cocaine. Pay me. The game needed a new OG, so what I did is kept it low key. Went from selling zones to that OG to waking up the views on South Beach. Something like a leech, I bleed the streets. Catch me out in that SRT, smashing off in that Stingray, doing the dash to the check, bitch. Shit be too funny, be so flashy on YG. When I slide by your low profile and it's something that cost me at least 80 G's. Your man squeeze on bended knee, trying to suck me dry, but no, not for free. Cause I ain't buying no noise late, but if you talking chips, then let's go and chase. Steady smoking that loud, but I ain't making no noise. See, I'm steady getting to this money, man, but I ain't making no noise. I keep my top down, letting the smoke out, but I ain't making no noise. I keep 1,000 on my feet, see, still I ain't making no noise. Rolling them cookies in that OG, but I ain't making no noise. I keep a 30 round of that Trey pound, but I ain't making no noise. The people trying to roll up on me, see, man, I ain't making no noise. I ain't making no noise, man, say I ain't making no noise.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I was being nosy. I see my co-hosts over there running amok. So anywho, what's going on this morning, y'all? I got some Louisiana news you can use. I just seen last night, I was looking at the news, and I seen they had a lot going on in the state of Louisiana. So I say, well, fuck it. If I get up in the morning and room ain't live, I'm gonna go ahead and bring it to y'all. So first of all, we got two groups of folk in Louisiana, specifically in Alexandria and Rapides Parish. They were supposed to be working together to get shit accomplished because folks' utility bills. First of all, our utility office got hacked, and so for about 6 months, they couldn't read the meters. They couldn't do anything because they were hacked, and they didn't make it public. It's just because we in a small town, the people that work for them let everybody know. So magically, after the hack was over, everybody's utility bill increased by at least $200, even if the people in their house listened, even if they was unplugging shit, even if they were not using as many utilities and energy as they were at first. Um, it increased. So we had some community activists who decided that they would work together and they would goddamn me, they would go against the mayor and the councilmen at large because they are the ones who are responsible for bringing in revenue for the city. And I'm quite sure I've told y'all before that the city relies on the utilities for its revenue. So we had two people in particular, three people actually. One of them have been on my channel, Nat Turner. He is absolutely the local Alexandria troll of the year every year. Another one by the name of Shakola Jones. She's an activist, but she still do her ditty in the street. So a lot of people tell her that she's contradictive. And another one by the name of ES, who used to do like a real tea spill, but she has changed her ways now, and she's all about building community. So the problem is that on the Shakola side, they cool with the sheriff, Mark Woods. And I brought y'all quite a few stories about old Sheriff Mark Woods, how he has been responsible for a few people getting killed. Um, with on video. On video. He actually participated in one that was a mental health call, but they for some reason took the young man to the parish jail and they beat him. They hog-tied him and they beat him. And the sheriff was seen kicking him in his head while he was hog-tied. 5 minutes later, the young man was dead. I brought that story to y'all a little while back. I also brought to y'all the story where the sheriff sent a confidential informant to go in, trying to find the video, to go in and do a buy. And while she was there, the confidential informant unfortunately was raped twice. So you got that story. And then last year, or was it earlier this year, I covered the Derek Kitland story where the sheriff texts two deputies from another city to come to a black neighborhood here in Alexandria, and they shot the man in his head, point blank range, and the man was unarmed. Hey, big old baby. So, you got elections coming up, and these people are supposed to be helping the people, but they really just going for politicians that they want, that they like. So yeah, I'm just gonna let y'all see a little bit of this particular story. The first story is about Rose Taylor. She was a woman who was sitting in her car at a local hotel. One of the police came and pulled up on her, demanded her driver's license and so forth. Um, they manhandled her so bad, beat her so bad that the jail would not accept her unless she went to the hospital. Well, the police took her to the hospital, and according to the reports, the police signed and said that she refused services and brought her back to the parish jail where she died. It took the family months to be able to get the coroner's report. And when the family finally got the coroner's report, the coroner was saying that it was a homicide, that she was beaten to death. So her family is in fact trying to get justice, and it was definitely the sheriff. The sheriff okayed it, the sheriff hit it, and this is what goes on. I'm trying to get this video to play, but it was in their comments. Okay, here we go. No, there's still a short one. I just want y'all to see what we be dealing with here. Okay, hold on, because I see people asking for the full video. How y'all doing this morning? Okay. Say it's on YouTube. Bow. There we go. Got it. I don't want to hear the music. Let me fast forward the music. So what's crazy is her uncle is actually a sheriff, and he asked them what was going on with his niece. But the dirty birds, they don't give a fuck if you're people police or not, especially if you're black.
My niece, Rosemary Taylor, was a resident at Siegel Select Hotel in 2022. Her and her girlfriend were residents there, and they were attempting to agree to go get something to eat. When they were approached, or really they were blocked in by two APD police officers. One police officer came from the right, the other one came from around the back of the building, and they blocked the vehicle in. Brian Frost and Matthew Frost, which was a father and son who worked for APD, approached the truck and asked them what they were doing. Rose told them at that time they were doing nothing, that they was getting ready to get something to eat, and he asked to see their identification. At that time, Rose told her she didn't have an identification, and asked him, what the problem was. She didn't have an identification, and he actually get out of the vehicle, and she asked him for what. He told her at that point in time that she didn't get out the vehicle, he would remove her, and she told him don't put her effing hands on her. She didn't do anything wrong. At that time, he told her again if he didn't get out, she's going to remove him. Both Frosties were standing in the doorway, and at that particular time, what we saw on body camera, the cameras went blank. What we saw from the next frame was them with her in handcuffs going to the police car. At the police car, they were searching Rose's bag, and they were also searching Erica's bag. And at the time, they had Rose on the hood of the car, which the car was running, and Rose raised up, and she walked about 1 or 2 feet. They grabbed her and slammed her back down the hood again. Rose asked him at that time, why you keep standing on the effing hood? Why do you treat me like this? He continued to tell her, shut your effing mouth. You're going to jail. You're going to jail. She kept asking, what did I do? He put Rose in the back of the car and took her to jail. Some of the stuff that we've seen, which we realized that the videos have been really, really altered, because all the way to jail, he taunted Rose all the way to jail. Rose told him at that time that he broke her hand, and he slammed her on the ground like an effing man. And the Frost guy said that, I didn't do that. I didn't do it. She said, you did. And the whole time he was turning the video camera on and off. And she asked him, why do you keep turning that camera off? I didn't turn the camera off. Yes, you did. And that was going back and forth all the way to the jail. And Rose did tell him that she told me she's going to get you fired. My uncle works for the sheriff department. I'm going to get you fired. And he laughed at it. He said, sure he does. And when they got to the jail, Rose told the second officer there, after they got out of the car, that she was hurt, that she needed medical treatment, and that Frost had slammed her on the ground and had slammed on the hood, and he broke her hand. And they told her that they would get medical treatment after they get upstairs and get her booked in. When they got upstairs to get her booked in, there was 4 jailers there, and she was telling them that she was hurt, that she needed medical treatment. Her hand was broke, and one of the ladies asked her, how do you know your hand is broke? She said, because I can feel it. When they got her to the jail, Rose had told Frost in the car that she was going to tell her uncle she was going to get him fired. When they got her to the jail, the Frost told one of the other officers that when they pulled up in the parking lot, that Rose stated that her uncle was worked at Rapid Fair Sheriff's Office, and he was going to get their badges. So that officer walked away from Rose and pretended to call her uncle. And after he had a makeshift conversation on the phone, he walked back over and he said, your uncle said, good luck. and they both laughed and they grabbed her by the arm and took her on upstairs to book her in. When they got her upstairs to the jail, she kept telling the jailers, there was 4 jailers that was there, that she was hurt, that Matthew Frost had beaten her. He slammed her on the ground. He broke her hand. And at the time, he was still denying he didn't do this. He didn't do that. And she was saying, look at me, look at me. I didn't do this to myself. I didn't do it to myself. And one of the jailers was asking her, how did she know her hand was broken? She told me, she said, look at my hand. And I know it's broken, it's swollen, and I can't move anything, and it hurts. At that time, she told me that the handcuffs had cut her wrist. So one of the jailers attempted to loosen the handcuffs up. She started screaming because she was in pain. So she kept begging them not to touch her hand. Please don't touch my hand. My hand's broken. Please don't touch it. So at that time, she told again, she kept begging for medical treatment. So one of the jailers told her, okay, we're going to go ahead and take you to the hospital. She said, I'm not going nowhere with Matthew Frost. I'm not going anywhere with him. He caused these injuries. He beat me up. He beat me like an effing man. I'm not going nowhere with him. So she kept begging to give her somebody else to take her to the hospital. And literally begged. She kept begging, please give me somebody else to take me to the hospital. I need to go to the hospital. So eventually they called another officer who was Alexandria Heminger. Heminger came up, walked in, and him and Frost were standing there talking. There was a bunch of chatter going on, but they decided they were going to go and take her to the hospital. When Heminger decided to take her to the hospital, they said Frost had to be present, had to go with them. And Rose told him she wasn't getting in the car with Frost. I died first before I get in the car with Frost. I'm not going to get in the car with him. So they put her in the car with Heminger. And Heminger told her, you go to the hospital with all this, or we're going to bring you back. Don't go to the hospital with all of that. And she told me, she said, well, he did, and they need to know. Got her to the hospital. And as they had her in the treatment room, there was a doctor and a nurse there. Rose started to tell them how she got her injuries. While she was in there talking to the doctor and the nurse, Heminger bust in the curtain and stopped them.
I'm going to stop it just to update you. Hey, April. So what we're watching right now is an interview with the uncle of a woman by the name of Rose Taylor, who is no longer with us. She was really good people. An associate of mine. I met her through my mom. She used to work with my mom. And because the elections are coming up, I'm going to start back shedding light on what's going on in my little town, so y'all could see the mindset of the people that are here and the corruptness of the entire city. You're going to see how it's not a black or a white thing. It's a clique thing. You're either in or out. This is just one of many cases where the sheriff's office has unalived somebody, did something they had no business, and was covered up by the Louisiana State Police even after investigation. So, yeah, and you can find more videos like this on one of my playlists called Louisiana Injustice. But again, this one in particular is about Rose Taylor.
From giving her medical treatment. And he told her, I told you, if you told us I'm taking you back. He actually signed a do not treat form and took Rose back to the jail. When Rose got back to the jail, she kept telling them, y'all know I'm hurt. Y'all know my hand broke. I need medical treatment. There was another jailer named Rodriguez. She kept telling Rodriguez, please give me some help. Please give me some help. She said, my hand is broken. So at that time, Rodriguez told her, she said, we were trying. She said, you got to do what they say. She told Rodriguez, that if I wouldn't be like this if it wasn't for Matthew and Brian. So she told him, she said, my hand is broken. And one of the other jailers, not Rodriguez, told her, she said, that sounds like a personal problem. And Rose told her then, she said, man, y'all, I got to get some medical help. At that time, she started walking around and pacing this in handcuffs. Matthew Frost walked back over to her and grabbed her arm. And Alexandria Heminger was standing on the opposite side. And she was telling them, get him away from me. So he pushed her into a little bit of cubby right outside the door. At that point in time, you could hear Rose screaming and yelling. She was screaming to the top of her lungs like she was being tortured. And that was about all that we had seen of her injuries. But we do know that Rose was found non-responsive in a holding cell by herself. They put Rose in that cell 2 days later. When they did come to check on her, Rose was dead. Now they say that they got a faint pulse back, but a Acadiana ambulance worked on her for 27 minutes. They got a faint pulse and took her back to Rapides Journal. When Rose went back to Rapides Journal, she was fully clothed. She had all her street clothes, everything on. Jewelry, tennis shoes, everything. Her hands had swollen so bad they had to cut the ring off her finger to get it off her finger. And they shaved her head to put electrodes on it because they wanted to see if there was any brain activity. At that time, she only had 10% brain activity, and they put on life support. They called the family. I got called the very next morning. I got there about 7 o'clock in the morning. When I walked in the room, when I saw what I saw, I actually got my legs got weak, because what I saw was almost unrecognizable. Rose had cuts on both of her wrists. You could all be down to the white part of her cartilage. All of her knuckles were swollen. Her hands were swollen. She had a big bruise on the left side of her head. She had bruising on the right side of her face. That what we could see. And my brother, who was a 34-year veteran of Rapides Parish Sheriff Department and a captain. And when he walked in, because I got there before he did, he walked in, and when he walked around the room, he looked at me. I looked at him. He immediately walked out the ICU room, and he called the sheriff, Mark Woods. And he told him, "Get some investigators down. This girl's been clearly beaten." Maybe an hour later, we had 2 investigators show up. They put us out the room. They came in. They went in the room, and they stayed in there for maybe 20 minutes. They came back out in the nurse's station. We were about maybe 10 to 15 feet from the nurse's station. And when they walked upon the doctor, they asked the doctor some question, but the doctor told him, he said, "This young lady didn't have to die." And when the doctor said that, the 2 detectives turned around and looked at us, and they ushered the doctor around the corner to have a conversation that week, I guess, so we could hear what's going on. The 2 investigators left. They didn't come back. We stood in the room, went back in the room, and I told my niece to take a look under the covers to see, what was it that was going on? That we were men, and she was a woman. So my niece, we stepped out the room. My niece did look. Now at that time, my niece did not say, which was her surviving sister, didn't say what she saw, but we did take pictures. So we took pictures of what we saw above the cover, and I shared some of those pictures. With one other media outlet, but there are some other pictures that we hadn't shared yet.
So basically, they beat Rose. Okay. A father and son duo of sheriff of APD, they beat this woman because she challenged their authority. They beat this woman because they could. They beat this woman, and her uncle is a 34-year-old vet and captain of the same police squad. He goes in the room because the hospital has called for the family, because this young lady who still, y'all, we still ain't heard of crime. We still don't know why they took her to jail in the first fucking place, right? We still ain't heard that part. But they beat her. They beat her. And when I tell y'all Rose was real good people, Rose was really good people. I'm talking about really good people. I'll go deeper into who she was. So the uncle comes in and being a 34-year member of this police unit, he called the sheriff. Sheriff, say, bro, I'm in here with my niece, and you need to send somebody down here because my niece done been beat. It's clear that my niece has been beat. But when the police is who investigate the police, you don't really get what it's supposed to give. Now, y'all, as citizens, right, as regular citizens, when we got the news that Rose died, they were saying that she overdosed. Nobody understood that because Rose wasn't no junkie. So overdosed on what? It literally took about 11 months for this story to come out. And that's because that's how long it took for the family to get the coroner's report, which is crazy because the coroner's initial report was that this was a homicide. But let's keep going.
Because it's really, it's kind of tough. And I don't think my sister's ready to see those facial injuries that she had. But we did release those pictures of her hands and the wrist, the way they were cut. Alexandria never reached out to us. They never even given us an explanation. When they signed her body autopsy, it took us 10 months to get the pathology report back. We had to go to the Attorney General's office. We had to petition.
Messy, this was in my city. This was in Alexandria. This Alexandria, Louisiana. And again, y'all, I got a playlist called Louisiana Injustice. I have some uploads up there, and I will be uploading the rest between now and elections to show y'all about this one sheriff, Mark Woods. And you'll see that for as long as he has been in, before he was, actually, he stomped a man in the head and got promoted to the sheriff, which is crazy. But what's even crazier is the amount of Black people that are locally campaigning for him. But it's my opinion that the only reason they campaigning for him is because they sell dope and he makes sure they don't go to jail. He got his confidential informants out here campaigning for him, but these stories tell themselves.
They've never even given us an explanation. When they signed her body autopsy, it took us 10 months to get the pathology report back. We had to go to the Attorney General's office. We had to petition him to force the pathologist to release the report. The pathologist wasn't holding the report up because he didn't want to release it. He was holding it up because Rapides Parish Sheriff's Office and Alexandria Police Department would not release any camera footage. The sheriff, the sheriff refused to send any. APD wouldn't send the pathologist any either. So the pathologist requested it several times, and he never received any camera footage from either a law enforcement entity. The pathologist did go ahead and release the report. We got it, and it came to us, and it said homicide, and it said blunt force trauma. She had an adrenal hematoma. She had blunt force trauma to the body. Her right hand had broken fingers on that hand. And the pathologist also ruled that the little bit of camera footage that he did see from our attorney, what our attorney got from them, the highly redacted part, he forwarded that to the pathologist, and what the pathologist saw in that they had redacted said that was enough to cause her injury, slamming on the hood of the car. That they did release because we had a video, someone videoed that, so we had that portion of the video too. So we didn't release that portion because they knew we had the video of them slamming on the hood of the car several times. In Brian Foster's report, he said that was a brief struggle ensued. In the video, there's no struggle. You see them standing at the car, and then they took her. You see them in handcuffs going, standing at the truck, and then you see her in handcuffs going to the car. So there was no struggle. Another thing too, he said that in his report that he saw what looked to be like illegal activity, probably between 200 to 300 yards away. All he saw what he thought was a black man and a white woman. My niece was opening the gate, and she was dressed like a guy. So what he saw from MacArthur Drive, what he thought was a black man and a white woman at a hotel. So most likely, and just assuming, what in a police officer's mind, when you see it at a hotel, he probably thought that what they were doing was probably solicitation. But when he accosted them, he walked up and he said, "Ma'am, oh, I'm sorry, sir. Excuse me, sir." So when he walked up, he by his own admission, he thought it was a black man sitting in that truck. Now, most of the things that we're getting in bits and pieces, you can't get any factual thing from APD or Rapides Parish. Once my niece died, when we did get the pathology report, my niece and I, Amy, we went to Louisiana State Police, wouldn't do anything. We went to Rapides Parish Sheriff's Office, wouldn't even talk to us. Went to the DA's office, Philip Terra, wouldn't talk to us. We went to APD to see the captain. Unfortunately, she did talk to us, but she told us at the time she was interim and not much she could do.
So, also, if you go to my playlist about Derek Kitling, you will see that the Rapides Parish Sheriff's Office, the Louisiana State Police, and our local district attorney, Philip Terrell, all work together. In fact, whenever the police beat and kill somebody here, how many times have y'all seen the district attorney pop up on the scene of a crime with the sheriff? They come together. They come to the scene of the crime together. Okay? The only person we had to investigate the Louisiana State Police and its corruption was Derek Kitling's brother. And this sheriff, Mark Woods, so happened to call some people, some racist white cops from 3 cities over, from a sundown town, to come one Sunday morning because kids were so safe walking around with a gun hanging out. I mean, we're a concealed carry, open carry state, so I don't understand. But they pulled over the investigator's brother, Mr. Derek Kitling, and they shot him in his head. His brother was the only one that was investigating the Louisiana State Police corruption from the inside. He was the head investigator. Yeah. So as y'all will see, and you'll see the trend, the Louisiana State Police is who investigates the local police. But the local police and the district attorney all work together with the Louisiana State Police. So here there is no justice.
We asked for body camera footage. They wouldn't release it. They said they didn't have it. We went a second time a few weeks later. Me and my niece, we went to see the sheriff and the DA, and they said the sheriff was out. So what we did outside in the hallway. So I told the secretary, we're not leaving until we see the sheriff. If we got to sit here all night, we're not leaving. 2 hours later, the sheriff come walking down the hallway, and he ushered it in his office. When we did go to his office, he called in the DA, which is Philip Terrell. He called in the lead investigator, and the four of us, 1, 2, 3, 4, the four of us was in the room. We asked him, could he give us any answers to anything? He said, sorry, he could not, because they didn't know what was going on, but he can assure us that his people didn't do it. So we asked him if there's an investigation going on at this time. He didn't. He told us that there was not. We asked him why. He didn't have an answer to why. So the DA stepped in and said, told us this. He said that, well, we know that Rapides Parish and none of the guys here did anything to her. So what we're telling you is, you need to get an attorney, and you guys need to start there. And I told him, I said, we didn't ask you to tell us what we need to do. We asked you, what can you give us, because we are the family. And at this time, there's no investigation. So whatever you have, you can give us, or you can tell us, because there's no investigation. So at that time, Philip Terrell told me, it's my job to protect the sheriff. Whatever happens, it's my job to protect the sheriffs. And I asked him at that time, is it your job to protect the sheriff or enforce the law? It's not your job to protect the sheriff. And he got agitated. Well, so you know the law. And I told him, I said, at this point, you don't. I said, because when the pathologist said homicide, that means she did not die by her own hand. That means somebody caused her death. And at this point, y'all don't care who it is, because it was done by law enforcement. She wasn't on the street. She wasn't at home. She was in police custody. So therefore, you guys don't want to open up an investigation. I said, but here's the deal. If you don't, I said, we're going to every media outlet there is. So at that time, the sheriff called over to LSP, and he told Philip Terrell verbatim. One of the lead investigators' wife was an investigator for LSP. So I looked at my niece and I looked at him. How much credibility do you think we're going to have? So another one of your friends going to call one of your friends to investigate my niece's death. Are you serious? And by the way, LSP has no credibility at all. Ronald Green's mama, 4.5 years later, still fighting, when y'all have the full-fledged videos where they beat this man in handcuffs to death. And Philip Terrell got really upset. And it got into a shouting match. My niece, I really had to kind of get in between the two of us. And like I told him, you're not going to do to me what you did to my niece. Y'all did this some way, somehow, and all y'all covered it up. And we'll get to the bottom of it. And we left that office that day. We went to the FBI, left there 3 blocks away. The FBI said nothing they could do. At that time, I've gone to the DOJ. I was at a meeting here, town hall meeting here at the DOJ, and talked to them. I've called Brandon Brown's office several times. There's not a law enforcement entity all the way up to, I've been sending this stuff to the White House. We've been sending files to everybody that we could get to try to at least somebody to stop, take a look, and listen, and at least look into this. Now, since we've got this thing kind of slowly catching some steam, there's 7, 8 other families that have gone through the same thing. There's records where Mark Woods kicked the young man in the head, and the video came out 10 years later. The young man died. Destiny Jones, I'm in contact with his sister at this time, because that's one of those cases too where it was swept on the rug. There's so many killings that went on in Rapides Parish. There was 2 fentanyl overdoses last week. And by the way, when we got to the hospital, what we were told is that Rose had committed suicide by fentanyl. That's what they told us. And we were about to believe it until we saw what we saw in the bed. But the pathologist report redacted that. The pathologist report found that in her system, all they found was benzene and THC. Benzene was a muscle relaxer that she had prescription for her back, and THC is regular marijuana. So they didn't find any other drugs in Rose's system at all. So therefore, they could not rule Rose's death a.
So, hey, sweet babe. So when we were told that Rose overdosed, we were told that because that's what they told her family. Even though a toxicology report showed that she ain't have no fentanyl nowhere in her system. They don't care about what the truth is because, Messy, you say who supposed to help them? Nobody. 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 As you can see, if something happened to you in Louisiana, baby, your family, that's it. It just happened to you. This good old boy system down here, I keep telling y'all, these parishes, the federal government know what's going on here, and they still allow Louisiana to do it. Yeah, but Naya, did you hear him? There was no fentanyl in her toxicology report. She had a prescription pain pill in her system, and she had marijuana in her system. The prescription pain pill she actually had a prescription for. So APD did it. The sheriff office covered it up. The district attorney said, we're not even investigating, even though the coroners ruled her death a homicide and she was in custody of the police when it happened. The feds said, we ain't touching it. And like he said, there are so many other cases and families. The state attorney general won't touch it. Nobody will touch it. No, girl, Rose Taylor. Rose Taylor. Get out of Louisiana. You wouldn't want to leave Louisiana. If it were not for my grandmother being here, I would not be here. I wouldn't be here. Yeah, it's that bad. And so when you want to figure out the mindset of the people in Louisiana, that hopelessness, that fuck it, why is the zombie land? Why everybody just give up? It's easy to say just pack up and leave. It's easier said than done. If this is all you know, and you see the federal government not helping, and you seeing the corruption all the way up, at some point it's like, it don't matter where I go, it's the same everywhere. Now, I've been leaving since I was a little girl, so I know better. But you got to think about how many people have never left Louisiana, so they really don't know. And then when the feds kick in, that's the feds. That's not state. That's feds. That's federal. That's all 50 states. That's federal. You see the corruption and you like, what's the point? So it's a lot of people with hopelessness here. It's a lot of people who feel like it don't matter where we go, we're going to be in the same fucking boat. So I'm not going to uproot my entire lineage to go somewhere for the same shit. Honestly, that's how a lot of people here feel. And it's really heartbreaking. I used to run away all the time, but my 91-year-old grandmother asked me to stay. So I'm here. But yeah, they actually told her family that she had committed suicide by fentanyl, even though that was not even in her system. The district attorney actually told her family there is no investigation because it is my job to protect the sheriff. I didn't know that's what the district attorney's job was. Then they told them they would call the state police, which I already told y'all about the ties the local people here have to the state police. But let's keep going.
Fentanyl overdose death, and that's what they did with two other deaths. Last week before last, there was two other deaths. And the most amazing thing about these two deaths is they got a gentleman that turned himself in for bringing drugs into the Refuge Parish jail. Now, this is what I don't understand. Anybody with a brain would know that if you got a street level criminal, what street level criminal would turn himself in and take claim for two deaths? You know you're gonna get charged for both of them. So this guy, so say, turned himself in and taking responsibility for bringing fentanyl to the jail. That wouldn't happen anywhere. You know.
Oh, they show up. So Naya, I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna let it keep playing. I remember one time my apartment got broke into, right? So we called 911. This is the last time I called them, right? I don't fuck with them. These people told me it would take CSI off the TV as they giggled to figure out who broke into my apartment. Now, when them hoes left, I finally went on in my apartment. Went in my apartment and cracked the case, okay? Because I lived in a duplex and I'm knowing I had locked all my windows and everything because I was staying in the hospital with my aunt who had cancer at the time. So I look up and the attic door, was moved to the side. Oh, okay. Well, there's no way you could have got down in my attic unless you got up from my next door neighbor's attic. So, that's who did it. Like, that's all it took. It took 5 minutes for me to see that. But that's the type of shit they do when they come out. They come out, but it ain't really no help. They not really offering any help at all. Any at all. You and I've had some very good friends of mine who became city marshals or worked for APD. They gone. They gone. They couldn't take it. They left. The good ones leave.
That's another story in itself. Nobody would do that. So, and the level of corruption with Refuge Parish and Alexandria PD is outlandish. You know, the if you start doing some research, Mark Frost was fired from Refuge Parish for stealing. He lost his job at Graphics Parish, and lo and behold, he go 3 blocks to APD and get another job. You and I wouldn't have got another job. Mark Woods, this is not the 1-2, but there's several cases where Mark Woods have against him. He's on investigation now. How can you be in these jobs and still, run a city from law enforcement perspective, and yet still people say he died, and some of these deaths you're committing, and yet you still got a badge and a gun. So this really has got the family, and I mean it's totally it's not understandable. We don't get it, because with what we sit in here and what we have, look like to me they should be arresting somebody. Matthew Frost and Brian Frost were suspended with pay. Alexandria Heminger, he recently got a promotion. He got a promotion and an accommodation. My thing was, when I called APD to talk to the mayor, he wouldn't talk to me. Left a message for him. How can you give a guy who actually committed a crime, when he signed that do not treat form, knowing she needed medical treatment, that was malfeasance in office. He committed a crime. How can you give him a promotion when he committed a crime? What all these officers did was a crime. My thing is, how in the work could this continue to happen? How can nobody not do anything? Especially law enforcement. So, I mean, we're trying to find some source to make sure that Rose gets justice. Rose didn't deserve to die. Rose was not in her own business, not bothering anybody, not breaking no law. She did not deserve to die.
Once again, it's the Miss Cedar Show, and we have Robert Jordan. He spoke today on Rose Marie Taylor. Is there any social media platforms that we could find you on where you are posting about Rose?
Yeah, we have a GoFundMe set up for her surviving son and the family, and then you also can go to Robert Jordan just on Facebook.
And what about that GoFundMe information?
The GoFundMe information, I will share that. It's actually, I think it's on Facebook also, but it says Justice for Rose Marie Taylor, and it's just posted on Facebook.
Okay, Justice for Rose Marie Taylor.
Rose Marie Taylor. Say her name with me. Everyone has.
So that's Rose's story, okay? But you literally, real life, have people from Louisiana, people from Alexandria, Black people who promoting him, this sheriff. They promoting him. They want him to be the sheriff again. They want him to be the sheriff again. They out here campaigning for him like he the best man for the job. And when I tell y'all, I'm going to be bringing more and more stories to y'all. I covered this one once, but I'm going to just do a little brief synopsis on it before I go, because I'm not going to hold y'all, because the only point of this is to continue to bring awareness to this through my little platform and whichever other way that I can. So I'm just going to show y'all, because he spoke about the sheriff being on camera. He himself, not one of the other officers, but the sheriff himself kicking somebody in the head. And this is right before he was actually promoted to sheriff. And I'm going to present y'all with this story, and then I'm out of here.
News Channel 5 at 6. Robert didn't deserve to leave here the way he left here.
Robert Ricks died while in law enforcement custody in Alexandria in 2011. We're breaking down the case and the new attention it's getting over a decade later. Good evening, and thanks for joining us for News Channel 5 at 6. I'm Brooke Buford.
And I'm Alina Noakes.
Early morning, February 6, 2011, 23-year-old Robert Ricks died at a local hospital after being taken to the Rapides Parish DC-1 jail just about an hour before.
Ricks was to be booked after an incident the night of February 5th at his grandmother's house on Applewhite Street in Alexandria. It began as a medical call because Ricks was apparently having a seizure.
And because Ricks died after an incident with law enforcement, Louisiana State Police investigated what happened and no criminal charges were filed.
A year later, his father, Lawrence Ricks, filed a federal civil lawsuit for a violation of civil rights. The parties named as defendants included the agencies and people involved, as well as Taser International, because Ricks was tased by law enforcement twice the night of February 5th.
And now, more than 11 years later, Robert Ricks's case is in the spotlight again.
A video was posted to YouTube on May 23rd, reportedly of new video of Rick's encounter with law enforcement at the jail. That video spawned a letter a week later from his younger sister, Destiny Jones, to the U.S. Department of Justice, asking for the case to be reopened.
We don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out, how it turned from him being a patient to an arrestee.
And for the past few weeks, our team has been poring over hundreds of pages of documents from the case, including affidavits, medical reports, and expert testimony.
Plus, more than an hour of surveillance video taken in the jail. Here's a recap of the case and what could happen next.
Destiny Jones says her older brother, Robert Ricks, lived with his grandmother, Maxine Jones, at her home on Applewhite Street.
He had literally moved back here to Alexandria. Now, it was like a year going into 2 years, like a year and a half that he had been back here.
Ricks struggled with mental illness.
He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar, and he was going to outpatient services.
And just 3 days before the incident with law enforcement, he was discharged from Crossroads.
Repeat number 1.
Around 9:30 p.m. on the night of February 5th, 2011, Rick's grandmother made a call to 911.
Ambulance is 716 Applewhite Street right quick. I have a young man here. I have a seizure.
A Acadian ambulance arrived at the scene first. A paramedic went in to assess Ricks, who was sitting in a recliner in the living room, and in a report said he was very anxious, sweating, breathing heavily, and had dilated pupils. But he was awake and alert. The report states Ricks abruptly stood up and went to the back of the house, which led to Acadian crews becoming concerned about safety, deciding to wait outside for assistance.
That's when the Alexandria Fire Department arrived. Captain Silton McTwire, who worked for the department, noted in a report that he had dealt with Ricks before in 2010, in which he noted, quote, Ricks' behavior had been very combative and violent. Another firefighter noted in the report that Ricks had mutilated himself in the 2010 incident. And because of that prior incident, McTwire gave orders on February 5th for other firefighters and Acadian personnel to leave the home and called Alexandria police for backup.
Rick's grandmother spoke with KALB back in 2011 about the incident. She died less than a year after her grandson's death.
They said they weren't equipped to handle a person like that. The ambulance said. So I guess they must have called them policemen. 4
members of APD arrived at the home: Officer Deidre Allen, Officer Marcus Kirk, Officer William Carmouche, and Sergeant Danny Joffrion. The 4 members of APD were told by McTwire about the 2010 incident with Ricks, despite at least one of the officers' statements sharing that they were responding to a combative patient. There are no reports at this point in the night of Ricks being combative with anyone.
So they responded to a medical emergency. But because a year before then, they had a run-in with him where he was combative, they told the people not to treat him, but to call the police. Okay? That's where we at with it. Now, he hadn't been combative this night. He hadn't done anything wrong. He had actually had a seizure. And I don't know if y'all know anybody who is epileptic or have ever been around anybody who has a seizure, but when they first come out of a seizure, they really don't be all there. It take them a little minute to come back to reality. But let's keep going.
At 10:12 p.m., the 4 officers entered the home and went to talk to Ricks in the back bedroom of the house. The following claims came from their statements given to Louisiana State Police just a week after Ricks' death. The officers described Ricks as restless, constantly changing clothes and looking through paperwork in the bedroom. Officers were with him between 45 minutes and an hour, attempting to get him to go to the hospital. Officer Carmouche, who was also a paramedic, shared that he saw Ricks with both antipsychotic and anti-anxiety medication.
2 of the 4 said he was on the phone at one point with his girlfriend, who was also trying to get him to go to the hospital. His sister also said Rick spoke with his older brother, Lawrence, while in the bedroom.
Robert told him, Lawrence, I'm okay. I took my medicine. I don't know why they're here.
The officers claim that Rick's grandmother told them she had a heart condition, was tired, and wanted him out of the house, but noted that she was a calming presence for Rick's in the back bedroom, with at least one officer claiming that Rick's clung to her as she walked him out of the bedroom.
When they made it to the living room, officers claimed that Ricks became apprehensive when his grandmother shared that she was not going to the hospital with him. This is where their accounts of the situation start to differ. Officers Carmouche and Allen state that Ricks fell on top of his grandmother in a chair in the living room, but Sergeant Joffrion and Officer Kirk claim she was pushed into the chair by Ricks. All claim that Jones yelled for help to get Ricks off of her. At this point, 3 of the officers state that Ricks was removed from on top of Jones and was handcuffed. But Kirk says Ricks refused to get off and a struggle ensued before they handcuffed him. And that's when they took Ricks to the patrol car.
They was called out for medical attention. And if my brother refused medical attention, they should have left.
Officer Carmouche states at that time, Ricks began to yell that the officers were going to beat him and that he had not been advised of his rights. Ricks then sat in the backseat of a police car with his legs still outside of the car. Officers state he would not put his feet inside, adding that 2 knee strikes were performed to no avail. All 4 state that Joffrion decided to drive stun Ricks with a taser. That means the cartridge was removed. They all say after he was drive stunned, he put his legs inside of the vehicle. That's when they made their way to the DC-1 jail and not the hospital.
So how did he end up at the jailhouse?
And it's important to note that up until this point, only Officer Kirk states in his report to state police what Ricks would be charged with, and Kirk only stated that decision was made after Ricks was handcuffed and tased.
From the house, all 4 APD members then got to the DC-1 jail with Ricks at 10:43 p.m., who was in Officer Kirk's squad car. From here, KALB has the surveillance video from inside and outside the jail from the moment Ricks arrived to when he left on a stretcher just over 30 minutes later. It's important to note our station obtained this video back in 2012 through the Freedom of Information Act, although Rick's family claims that until a recent viral video related to the case was released, they never saw this
Okay,
video.
Naya.
Video.
Thank you for
So
coming
they
by,
told me
baby.
what to go type in, and I go type it in, and I go and look, and that's when we see everything.
We spoke with Carol Powell-Lexing, who represented Ricks's father in a federal civil lawsuit in 2012, who confirmed to us that she asked for the video during discovery, but further questions about what she remembers from the case were difficult for her to answer, given that it was over a decade ago.
Ricks was removed from the squad car at 10:48 p.m. when 2 Rapides Parish Sheriff's Office deputies, James Brunette and Jason Walker, came to assist APD. Once Ricks walked toward the glass doors of the jail, the surveillance video shows Ricks pulling away from law enforcement, what Carmouche called, quote, kicking and jerking away in his statement. Ricks eventually fell to the ground, with officers and deputies going down with him.
Almost 2 minutes later, Ricks is picked back up. Remember, he's handcuffed and from there, carried into the jail toward the elevator. Surveillance video shows that Ricks is carried for the rest of the time that he's in the jail.
He was never set back up once they got him out their patrol car. And of course, he was afraid to get out of their patrol car because they had already been hitting and beating on him and tasering him.
When they get to the 4th floor and get off the elevator, the group is met by Deputy Corey DeVille and then Deputy Mark Wood, who is now the sheriff of Rapides Parish. They continue to carry Ricks down the hallway before Ricks falls to the ground again. It's then that Wood kicks Ricks, but accounts differ on where Ricks is kicked. According to a statement from Wood, he kicked Ricks in the shoulder area. After seeing the video, which you see on your screen, Ricks' family disagrees and believes he was kicked in the head.
All parties need to be.
Now, why would you kick him in his shoulder? Even if you kicked him in his shoulder, he hog-tied. What in the fuck is you kicking on him for? What would be the reason? But you know what happened to that man after this? He went from deputy to sheriff.
Be held accountable. But for that, in that video, you specifically kick a mentally ill person. That is not how that's supposed to go. Law enforcement is supposed to protect and serve us. And obviously, we're not being protected if that's the type of treatment that you're getting.
In an affidavit taken 2.5 years later, Wood said that at no point while Ricks was in the jail that he was informed Ricks was a schizophrenic or had suffered a seizure.
They walked Ricks further down the hallway, but had to continue to wait for the isolation cell to be cleared. During that time, multiple law enforcement accounts say Ricks was struggling. In an interview with Louisiana State Police, Deputy Brunette told investigators that he told Ricks that if he did not stop kicking and resisting, that he was going to tase him. Brunette stated that Ricks said he, quote, didn't give a damn and continued to kick. That's when Deputy Brunette took a taser away from Deputy DeVille and drive-stunned Ricks for 2 to 3 seconds on his lower back. We do not have a clear video of when Ricks was tased, but Deputy Wood and Deputy Walker claimed that after being tased, Ricks said, okay, I'm cool. Ricks's family shared that they're still confused as to why he was tased twice that night.
I couldn't tell you what I really think in their head what was going on, but what I think is they abused their power and excessive force was used.
When the cell was cleared, Ricks was brought inside. At this point, we do not have a video from inside the cell. According to several law enforcement accounts, Ricks was found to be unresponsive. About a minute later, Officer Carmouche checked his pulse and determined he was not breathing. Carmouche, who is also a paramedic, told deputies to get the AED and call for a Acadian ambulance. While Carmouche began administering CPR, he sent Sergeant Joffrey on to get his medic bag from his patrol car. After that, Carmouche started an IV on Ricks and continued administering aid.
Acadian arrived at 11:15 p.m. Ricks was brought out of the cell at 11:24 p.m. on a stretcher with a paramedic continuing chest compressions.
Ricks was brought to Rapides Regional Medical Center where he was pronounced dead at 12:13 a.m. His official cause of death was excited delirium due to schizophrenia and cocaine toxicity following a struggle, and the manner of death is listed as an accident.
Excited delirium is a diagnosis of a potentially deadly state of agitation and delirium. It's also described as an overdose of adrenaline. According to Ricks's autopsy performed by pathologist Dr. Christopher Tape, Ricks had high levels of cocaine in his system. In Ricks's toxicology report, Dr. Michael Evans estimates Ricks had ingested a lethal dose of the drug.
Dr. Tape goes on to say that cocaine use alone can be a cause of excited delirium, but so can schizophrenia, stating that, quote, most likely the schizophrenia and cocaine acted in concert to initiate an excited delirium and death.
The autopsy showed that Ricks's body also had signs of physiological stress. Dr. Tape adds in his report that being tased would raise a person's hormones in response to stress, and that those same hormones are at their peak a few minutes after a struggle and deaths attributed to excited delirium, but states that taser devices are not likely to be a cause of death.
If you look online, look up the taser deaths, anybody that have died after being tased, they're going to use that term excited delirium.
It's important to note in the present day, some consider excited delirium to be a controversial diagnosis and is not widely recognized by many health organizations. But in the toxicology report, Dr. Evans noted Ricks exhibited several signs of excited delirium during interactions with law enforcement.
According to the Alexandria Police Department's policy and procedure use for taser use, officers must be aware of a subject's condition, including if the subject is in a state of excited delirium, quote, prior to being tased, adding that those exhibiting excited delirium should be transported to the nearest medical facility as soon as possible. And as we know, Ricks ended up being taken to the jail instead and was tased twice that night, despite apparently showing signs of excited delirium. And by the time the lawsuit filed by Robert Ricks's father came to a conclusion in the summer of 2015, only Taser International remained as a defendant.
The others were dismissed by Judge D. Drell through motions over the years. On June 4, 2015, a jury sided with Taser International, and the claims against the company were dismissed.
Now, more than a decade later, after the night her brother died, Destiny Jones is hoping that her letter to the U.S. Department of Justice may lead to it being reopened, this time by the FBI.
She also wants criminal charges filed and is calling on those in law enforcement who were there that night, including now Sheriff Mark Wood, to step down. We reached out to Sheriff Wood for comment on Destiny Jones' letter and claims and received this statement from his office. It reads, quote, all facts were presented in federal court and a federal judge has ruled that no one did anything wrong in the handling of this matter.
And Jones is optimistic that she'll hear back on her letter and the people she sent it to, including Governor John Bel Edwards, Attorney General Jeff Landry, and the legislative members investigating the Ronald Greene case.
I expect to hear something back. There's no way this can go unnoticed. It's too much evidence that's out there, especially with this video footage showing the mishandling conduct of a mentally ill man.
Jones tells us she's in the process of looking for an attorney to represent her.
There's no word yet on if the FBI will accept the case and re-examine it.
We'll be
Yeah. So closing with that one. Maybe later today, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I will give y'all I'll give y'all some more of on my block. On my block. I see one of the girls is going live. Okay. Yeah. So I will be bringing y'all more of what's going on in my little city as elections come, like I said. And y'all tell me, what is the people to do? Do you desert these? Some of these people here, people own homes, own businesses. It's easy to say just pack up and leave, but why should they have to pack? Why should we have to pack up and leave when there's supposed to be a justice system? When there's supposed to be a legal system that is about what's right and what's fair. And if it fails you at the city level, how on God's green earth is there a federal level of justice and we can't even get it there? So I think instead of suggesting that everybody just pack up and leave everything that they've ever known, their family's been there for generations and generations, how about we get on the ass of the people who actually are supposed to be doing something and hold them accountable? The lack of accountability with people and organizations today is crazy. It's insane. At some point, you got to say, hey, we pay taxes, we pay your salaries. Y'all elected officials, we gonna quit voting y'all in here. At some point, you got to take a stand. You can't keep running. You can't keep just leaving everything that you've worked hard for. At some point, you got to stand up and take a stand. At some point, somebody got to do something. It's 2023. Ain't no way in Jesus' name this type of shit's supposed to be going on. Recorded. This is recorded. Y'all seen what they did to that man, Robert Ricks. It's recorded. Rose Taylor. It's recorded. And still no justice. Not even from a federal level. The U.S. Attorney General. But I promise y'all this. Nowhere outside of Louisiana, y'all ain't never heard of it, have you? What state are you in? I bet you never heard of none of these cases I'm telling you about. They never make it past state news. So if anything, if y'all could and would, please share these stories with your local news media. Maybe if more places knew what was going on, maybe if national news outlets would cover some of these stories, maybe then they wouldn't be able to hide behind their Louisiana sanctuaries. So that's my ask for anybody who's watching this, catches the replay, and you are out of state. My ask is that you go and get these stories and take them to take the names to your local news outlets. If you have a news outlet that likes to do investigative journalism, please just bring awareness. That's my point, and that's my ask. Because, for instance, my grandmother is 91 years old. She's not leaving here. She's not leaving here. My mom is almost 60. She's not leaving here. And they shouldn't have to. But the reason that they are able to do what they are able to do is because our local media is owned by them. And so there is no national awareness at what is going on where I'm from. Now, political awareness on a national scale, absolutely. As these families, have you heard them state, they have reached out to the feds, they've reached out to the U.S. attorney generals and state attorney generals. So they know, but as long as the citizens don't know, they ain't making no noise. Like my boy Billy Brosco say. So we just want to make a little noise. That's it. We just want to make a little noise. That's all I need from y'all. Is when I bring y'all these stories, please share them with your local news outlets. Please. My granddaughter is here. My son is here. My children are here. And they don't want to leave. And they shouldn't have to. Thank y'all for tuning in. We're going to leave out to Billy Brasco.
Kato Tracks. But I ain't making no noise, no noise, no noise, no noise, no noise. But I ain't making no noise, steady smoking that loud. But I ain't making no noise, see I'm steady getting to this money, man. But I ain't making no noise, I keep my top down, letting the smoke out. But I ain't making no noise, I keep 1,000 on my feet, sit still, I ain't making no noise. Rolling them cookies in that OG. But I ain't making no noise. I keep a 30 round of that Trey pound. But I ain't making no noise. If people trying to roll up on me, see, man, I ain't making no noise. I ain't making no noise, man. Say, I ain't making no noise. I woke up feeling good. Said my prayers, rolled the backwood. Top shelf, OG. You know a nigga stay smoking good. Put my bun on, chains on. Burn the rung, that means end zone. Sound like a good ass day to me. Back touchdown like 83. Fired up the SS thing. 4 G's on Chevelle frames. I see Kool-Aid in that good dog. Doing 100 plus in the best lane. We celebrate champagne. Ace of spade, no campaign, no promo. You phone no, faking for them bitches with no guapo. When my stock low on my endo, that mean it ain't nothing less than 20. You see, I ain't making too much noise when it come to getting to this money. But it's smash mode, M.O.E. Hell yeah, boy, we got plenty. I've been getting paid 100 ways ever since a nigga was 20. Brasco, smoking that loud, but I ain't making no noise. See, I'm steady getting to this money, man. But I ain't making no noise. I keep my top down, letting the smoke out. But I ain't making no noise. I keep 1,000 on my feet, see, still I ain't making no noise. Rolling them cookies in that OG. But I ain't making no noise. I keep a 30 round of that Trey pound. But I ain't making no noise. If people trying to roll up on me, see, man, I ain't making no noise. I ain't making no noise, man. Say, I ain't making no noise. Thumb through 20K today. Another 30K yesterday, 50K in 2 days. Well, I'ma show you niggas how to get paid. Country boy, city ways, 100,000 in 90 days. It's a damn shame I make tree look like cocaine. Pay me. The game needed a new OG, so what I did is kept it low key. Went from selling zones to that OG to waking up the views on South Beach. Something like a leech, I bleed the streets. Catch me out in that SRT, smashing off in that Stingray, doing the dash to the check, bitch. Shit be too funny, be so flashy on IG. When I slide by your low profile and it's something that cost me at least say the G's. Your main squeeze on bending knee, trying to suck me dry, but no, not for free. Cause I ain't buying no noise later, but if you talking chips, then let's go and chase them. Steady smoking that loud, but I ain't making no noise. See, I'm steady getting to this money, man. But I ain't making no noise. I keep my top down, letting the smoke out. But I ain't making no noise. I keep 1,000 on my feet, see, still I ain't making no noise. Rolling them cookies in that OG. But I ain't making no noise. I keep a 30 round of that Trey pound. But I ain't making no noise. If people trying to roll up on me, see, man, I ain't making no noise. I ain't making no noise, man. Say, I ain't making no noise.
Bitches wanna keep trying me. One thing about it, don't go crying once you fuck around and see. A hungry dog will go bite once you let it off the leash. Once it go mad, you gotta put him down. R.I.P. Hating on the next one cause you don't have what I got. Same 24 in a day. You struggling, I'm not. The difference between me and you, I'm on your brain. I'm off in a different world trying to double up this knot. You can't think past giving us some pussy. You get mad at me cause I come through one shit, I'm pushy. Now you feel away cause he intrigued, he wanna do me. But fuck, I look like taking the assistance from a rookie. Push me to the limit, so I'm gonna speak. I got time to date. I got time to date. I got time to date. I got time to, I got time to, I got time to, I got time to. Why?